Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD. I'm sorry to be getting to you a little bit late tonight. I was actually having a hard time booting my computer. Microsoft kept on wanting to load some new stuff on. I won. I finally beat it, but I am running a little bit late getting here, so I apologize for that. So this is our first webinar of the new year. And for those of you that are new here, just so you know, you create the webinar and you create it with your questions. And the way that you write your questions to me is over here on the bottom side of the right-hand side of your screen, there's a chat box. Write your question in that chat box and then send it to me by hitting your enter key. I do ask that you only hit the enter key one time during your question, because each time you hit the enter key, it sends a complete question to me, okay? During the course of the webinar tonight, I will post questions on the screen. If you're participating in the live version of this webinar, that is not listening to a recorded version of it, but participating in the live version, you'll actually get to see those questions on the bottom of your screen. I will read them, though, so that those people that are listening in on the recorded versions actually get to go ahead and hear what that question is as well, too. I am creating a recording of tonight's webinar, and if everything goes as planned and there's no technical glitches, I should have that ready for you in the morning. I will send out an email somewhere between around 8 to 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time here in Texas, and get that out to you around that time. So look for that. Also, in that email, you'll be able to sign up for the next webinar, which is next week. And so this is the beginning of 4 webinars in a row. I believe I've scheduled 4 that we'll be having over the course of the next 4 weeks. I have moved to Thursday night, as many of you know, instead of doing these on Wednesday nights, because I was having a scheduling conflict with a meeting, a group that I get together with on Wednesday nights, and it was just getting too hard to get there in time. The advantage of doing Thursdays is I actually be able to spend an hour and a half with you. The last few weeks, we've only been able to do an hour and 15 minutes. So I think that takes care of everything. I see a lot of familiar names here. I'm glad to see you back again. And those of you that are new, I hope you get some insights and that you'll keep coming back and get some information that'll help you along your journey here too. Okay. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and take the first question here. All right. So this first question is from Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Very happy for your relocation. Thank you. I hope Texas is wonderful to you, your vicinities, and your practice. Wish you great health and happiness in 2019. I have no choice regarding lactose with prescriptions. Is there any alternative to the HMF Forte to clear yeast as per your recommendations, perhaps the soil-based formula on your website? So if you're wanting to try an alternative to the HMF Forte, which is a lactobacillus bifidobacterium-based probiotic, one thing I would suggest is doing a spore-forming soil-based probiotic. Okay, so what do all those words mean? So basically, when you look at something like an HMF Forte, that has in it a bifidobacterium, lactobacillus, different strains of those. Those are bacteria that are normally found within our intestinal tract, okay? An alternative that some manufacturers are coming up with recently is to do something called spore forming, also known as soil-based probiotics, all right? And so these are the kind of bacteria that actually you could find in the ground, for instance. And they actually form into spores, which is kind of a protective form of the germ. And so when we take them in pill form, they're in spores, which means they don't need to be refrigerated, actually. So you can actually store them at room temperature. The spore makes it so that it can get through the acid of your stomach and get deep into your intestines. Those spore-forming probiotics are of different strains than the kind that normally would make up our intestinal tract. And probably what they do is they actually promote a better taking a foothold, or they make it easier for the existing bacteria in your intestines to gain a foothold and stay there. And they help those bacteria grow and work better. So they're not really like repopulating your intestines with these spore formers, but rather they support the good bacteria that are there already and help them do better, help them gain a foothold, okay? All right, now the 2 spore-forming probiotics that I have used traditionally in my practice when I was practicing, and also that I offer through my supplement store, both of those are products, or actually there's 3 that I offer now. 2 of those are products that are from Research Nutritionals, And one is a product from Biobotanical Research, which is called ProFlora. Okay, so ProFlora through Biobotanical Research is a soil-based probiotic, spore-forming probiotic, and Research Nutritionals has two, of which they've recently stopped manufacturing one. All right, so the one they stopped manufacturing is something called Prescript Assist Pro. They have an alternative product called Core Biotic. And of their core biotic, they actually have two forms. There's one that's for people that are sensitive and ones that aren't, okay? Now, the difference between the core biotic and core biotic sensitive is the core biotic sensitive does not have fiber in it as a prebiotic, something that supports the bacteria. The core biotic sensitive does not have the fiber in it, and therefore it tends to be less irritating if you happen to be a person that has a lot of gassiness problems, for instance, okay? So, yeah, I think if you're not able to tolerate the HMF forte, you have some alternatives. Those would be spore forming. And of those, you could look at either the ones I have had success with in my own practice is either using the ProFlora through Biobotanical Research or one of the two core biotic products through Research Nutritionals, okay? And I recommend usually in terms of taking those that a person would do those as 2 pills 1 time a day, okay? All right, let me just do a quick screen share here so I can show you what I'm talking about here too, in terms of what those products are. All right, so this is my supplement store. If you're ever wondering what products do I recommend, which ones do I think have the greatest chance of helping you and don't have a lot of artificial fillers and that could hurt you, what are high quality products, take a look at Marty Ross MD supplements and you can see the various products I recommend, okay? Also, anyone can purchase from this site too. So in terms of core biotic, okay, so here are the two Research Nutritionals products. This is the regular one, all right? And then the other one that you could do is this one called ProFlora. And again, this is one made by Biobotanical Research. It's also a good product. And this is it right here then too. Okay, all right, let me go back here. All right, thank you for the question, Jackie. Good luck to you. Okay. So this is a really long question from Diana. And what I have found, if I try to post really long questions, I actually block my screen so I can't get back and hit the keys I need to. So I'm going to read this one, okay? I apologize for that, all right? This is from Diana. It says, Happy New Year, Dr. Ross. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease in 2016, CDC positive on both tests. At that time, I was also tested for all the other co-infections, but everything was negative. I never had a Herxheimer reaction from any of the antibiotic protocols and never really suffered at the typical Lyme arthritis symptoms. At this time, I'm much better than I was 2 years ago, but I'm still infected by pathogens. After 1 month of the antibiotic, amoxicillin, and 10 months of Lyme Buhner herbal protocol, I was still suffering some symptoms. A 2-month pulsed protocol of minocycline and Tindamax made me feel great, but red flag, typical symptoms of Bartonella emerged. My main symptoms have always been Bartonella related. I am doing Bartonella Tier 1 protocol. The Tier 1 protocol she's referring to is from my Bartonella treatment ideas. I'll show you that to you here in a second, which I started November 14th, taking azithromycin for a week, then adding rifampin. It did not seem to me that the azithromycin was working as a bacteriostatic. So after 2 weeks, I switched 2 weeks ago to minocycline, which usually helps my lower back soreness. When should I expect a betterment of symptoms? Both antibiotics make me feel a little lightheaded, nauseous, and fatigued. I'm also drinking Hutania tea 3 to 4 times a day. Question, do you think I should treat with erythromycin instead of minocycline if I feel that it's not working any longer as bacteriostatic? Would you suggest I take a Bartonella test? Do people actually get better from Bartonella if they had it for 5 years? Thank you for all your time and answering my questions. Okay, so I'll try to focus on a few things here. So first of all, when it comes to diagnosing Bartonella, Bartonella is a infection, a co-infection, and it's an infection you can get from that tick bite, the tick that gives you Lyme, and it can be transmitted. Now, we can do antibody testing for Bartonella, but the difficulty is we can test for about 2 strains, something called Bartonella cantana, something called Bartonella henselae, but we estimate that there's around 28 to 30 strains. And of those, depending on which authors you read and which science you look like, it looks like of those strains, primarily that we think are more animal related. However, we think that 17 of those 30 can infect humans, okay? Some authors say 15, some say 17. All right, so the problem is if we rely on testing for Bartonella, we may miss a whole lot of people that have it because we can only test for 2 of the potential 30 strains of which we think 17 infect people, okay? All right, so testing is not always reliable. So you can have Bartonella and not have tests that shows it, all right? So in my practice, when I was treating people, what I would recommend is that we treat primarily based on what the symptoms said. So if there's enough symptoms that say Bartonella, I would treat for Bartonella. All right. And so those symptoms are, and I'll show you all an article you can look at to figure out if you might have Bartonella based on symptoms. Main symptoms can be people have a lot of anxiety, or they may have some depression problems as well, too, beyond just the reactive depression you have from not feeling well, okay? Other things, a common symptom is just having very difficult thinking, kind of thinking that's even out of proportion to the degree of fatigue that you might have, for instance, okay? Bartonella is known for giving a lot of neurologic symptoms like seizures, maybe tremors, and things like that, okay? Bartonella is known for giving pain on the soles of the feet. Bartonella has a type of rash that looks kind of like a scratch or stretch mark sometimes that people will have. Sometimes Bartonella can give you bad abdominal pain, all right? So those are kind of the symptoms. I'll show you an article that you can look at here in a little bit about that. So I tend to treat for Bartonella based on what the symptoms are, okay? Now, when she was asking about she was describing that she's doing one of my tier 1 treatments or a tier 1 Bartonella treatment. There's an article I have on my Lyme disease information site called Kills Bartonella, a brief antibiotic guide, okay? And so in there, I break things down into things, a tier 1 approach, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 are things that have a better chance of working than tier 2 and tier 3, basically, okay? In terms of Bartonella, if you are on a treatment that is working well, usually within a month or 2, you should start turning around with those symptoms, okay? So you still need to wait. You need to give it about a month or 2 to turn around, okay? Now, is azithromycin any better than minocycline coupled with rifampin? Not necessarily, but it's all based on the individual. So some people respond better to azithromycin. Some people respond better to minocycline, okay? Both are drugs that you can easily take along with rifampin. In my tier 1 treatments, I tend to suggest that people take at least 2 antibiotics at the same time to help get rid of Bartonella. And when you do that, there is about a 95%, the tier 1 approach, there's an 80 to 85% chance time that the first 2 drugs you go on are going to be adequate to take care of your problem, okay? All right. You may have to, if that's not working well enough by 1 to 2 months, then sometimes you have to go ahead and try a different approach, a different set of antibiotics that I recommend. Okay. Now let's see here. Oh, one other point I want to make. You mentioned that while you were being treated for Lyme, you never had a Herxheimer reaction. And some people take that maybe as a sign to say that they really don't have Lyme. All right. So Herxheimer reaction, everyone, is a worsening that occurs when you start antibiotics to kill Lyme. And specifically what we think happens is as you start killing the Lyme germs, the immune system sees the dead bug parts and toxins that get released from the inside of those germs and makes more of a group of inflammation chemicals called cytokines. All right. Now, cytokines give you the same symptoms you have if you have Lyme. In fact, when somebody has Lyme symptoms, what they really have are excess cytokine symptoms. So cytokines are good and bad. Again, they're made by white blood cells. And they're made when a white blood cell sees an infection, they're supposed to help cause more white blood cells to be made, help those white blood cells work better, okay, and draw white blood cells to where the infection is. That's good. But in Lyme, often the immune system doesn't do a good job, keeps trying harder and harder, and eventually makes too many cytokines. And too many cytokines make you hurt all over, give you fatigue, make it so you can't think. I mean, I can go down the list of what we call Lyme disease symptoms. The majority of those are too many cytokine symptoms, okay? So now when you start killing Lyme germs, a lot of people will get worse because the immune system sees all those dead bug parts, all the toxins that get released inside those germs, and releases more cytokines, okay? Now, here's the thing, though. About 90% of the time that people treat Lyme, they will have Herxheimer reactions. But in my experience, what I used to see in my practice is about 10% of people never had Herxheimer reactions with their Lyme. All right. So not having a Herx does not mean you don't have Lyme. It just doesn't give you that clue that many people want to have. They want to know they're treating the right thing. Okay. But it's possible to go through Lyme disease treatment and never have a Herxheimer reaction. Okay. So I want to point that out to you. I don't think erythromycin is going to work any better than minocycline is to answer that part of your question. Yeah, and I think I answered all those parts. All right, let me go ahead and show you, do a quick screen share here for you. Okay, so this is, I'm going to get over. So this is my Lyme disease information site, Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. Many of you are familiar with it. It's where you signed up for the webinar, for instance, okay? So you could take a look at my online Lyme disease guide, where I basically give you information about how to deal with most problems that are going to occur in Lyme disease, okay? In one of those chapters, there's a chapter called How to Diagnose. And in terms of where you can find the how to diagnose Bartonella, take a look at this article called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia, the Symptoms and Signs. Okay, that'll give you information there. All right. And then in terms of what do you use to treat Bartonella, there's a couple of places that you can look. Number one, you could click on this Books tab, and you could purchase my guide it's called Anti-Germ Action Plans for Lyme Disease. It includes both herbal and prescription antibiotic option, antimicrobial options for Lyme and the co-infections, yeast, parasites, viruses, any kind of infections that might be associated with Lyme and Lyme disease. I have ideas for you here. Okay, so that's one place you can actually look at this. You can get it as a downloadable PDF. You can go ahead and do it as an Amazon Kindle. You can order an Amazon paper book on that one. Okay. The other way that you can look at the same information that's in here is just read the articles online. And the way you would do that is hit this infection treatment plans and take a look here, and you'll see my guide on antibiotics for Lyme, for instance. But there's one I wrote called Kills Bartonella, a brief guide. Okay. And in there, you'll see how I list things as tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. All right. Let me go back here. Okay. Now, you may wonder, why would you want to buy the paperback book if you can look at everything online? I mean, it's really a personal choice. The reason that I put things in either a PDF so you can download it, or paperback at Amazon, or available on Kindle, is some people just like to have a different source than reading things on their computer, okay? And so that gives you the way to do it. The other thing about the book, the articles are a bit more cleaned up. I actually had an editor that helped go through things and made things a little bit cleaner, easier to read than what you might see online, all right? But essentially, it's the same information. Okay, all right. Good luck to you. Thank you for that question. Let's see here. Hello, Oscar. Hey, Dr. Ross. I've done 5 months of Mepron, Biaxin, grapefruit seed extract, and Doxy for Lyme, Barton, Babesia. Been treating Lyme for about 2 years. I want to switch to herbs to keep things under control as I slowly taper off treatment. What would you recommend? Okay, so trying to figure out how to address this. Let me make a few statements, okay, so that we're talking about the same situation. All right. So if you're Babesia, regarding Babesia and Bartonella, when you treat them and those symptoms are gone or essentially gone, my practice experience showed me that around 95% of the time, if you get rid of Bartonella, you get rid of Babesia, they're gone. You actually can eradicate those. Okay, that was my experience following the treatment ideas that I have that you can read about. That you could eradicate those. Okay, so you don't really have to worry 95% of the time of Bartonella or Babesia coming back. Okay, so I just want to make that as a blanket statement. If you, however, when it comes to treating the Lyme infection, if Lyme has been in you for a year or more, I and most of my colleagues believe that we probably never get rid of every germ, okay? And so there may always be some chance that Lyme may come back, all right? And so you want to do things that are going to help support your immune system. Now, I have written a whole article about what to do at the end of treatment, okay? And I'll show you that here in a second so you can read it. But essentially what I suggest are things that help boost the immune system, all right? So number one, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, all right? That's kind of an essential thing, all right? Number two, make sure you're doing some form of exercise that you can tolerate, all right? Now, hear what I just said, that you can tolerate, all right? So you still have to be careful when you have chronic Lyme that you don't overdo it. If you overdo it, you may pay the price the next day. You may have more body pain, more fatigue. You do not want to consistently exercise at that level, all right? You want to try by trial and error to find a level of exercise that you can tolerate, okay? So again, number one, to prevent staying in Lyme, to keep Lyme from relapsing, number one, get sleep. All right. Even though you're feeling better, don't forget to get sleep. Number two, do some form of exercise. Number three, deal with the emotional toxins in your life, okay? So if we have a lot of stress, that is one of the biggest things that can suppress the immune system and make it so that you cannot, that your immune system doesn't do a good job helping keep the germs under control, okay? All right. All right. The fourth thing that I usually suggest is that people do take something that is boosting their immune system. All right. And there's a couple options three options I look at. All right. Number one, you could be on herbal mushrooms. Mushrooms turn on the cellular immunity, the type of cells that fight infections, both bacteria and viruses. All right. And I usually like working with a mushroom blend, which is called the Immune Builder 5 Mushroom Complex. It has 5 different kinds of mushrooms in it. And mushrooms are known to turn on the cells that fight infections, okay? If you are to do the Immune Builder 5 Mushroom Complex that I'm talking about, it's 1 pill 3 times a day. That's how I would recommend that, okay? Now, as an alternative to mushrooms, you could do something called transfer factors, all right? And transfer factors are proteins that are made by the immune system that also turn on cellular immunity. They help the cells that fight infection target the right infection, okay? There is one called transfer factor multi-immune that is just kind of globally targets the immune system, the cells that fight infections, that fight viruses and bacteria. That's a product made by Research Nutritionals, and that would be 1 pill twice a day, okay? The other option, if you want to get more targeted, would be to take something called transfer factor, or take a group of transfer factors that target the Lyme and the co-infections, all right? So again, white blood cells, when they see infections, so for the sake of describing transfer factors, let me divide the immune system into 2 parts, all right? There's one part that's the detectives, there's another part that's the army, all right? So the detectives see that there's an infection there, and they have to turn the army on. So they release a couple things. Number one, they release cytokines. All right, we talked about cytokines earlier, okay? The second thing they do, though, is they make these proteins called transfer factors that basically tell the immune system which germs are they supposed to attack. And they help gear the immune system up to fight those better, basically, okay? Now, there is a transfer factor mix called transfer factor L+, which is made by Research Nutritionals, that has in it transfer factors for Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, Ehrlichia, Anaplasma, human herpes virus type 6, something called Epstein-Barr virus, the monovirus, okay, and cytomegalo virus, and I believe chlamydia pneumoniae is in that one too, all right? So that's the most targeted transfer factor mix you're going to get, okay? So you might want to do that 1 pill twice a day. All right, so in terms of the things you can do to boost your immune system, either be on a 5 mushroom formula, or be on transfer factor multi-immune, or if you really want to just really target it, you could do this transfer factor L+, okay? All right. The other thing I always suggest to people is that they eat organic. Don't put poisons in. Okay, so try to keep doing that. Okay. And then finally, there's an option you could look at, which is to keep the germs under control, would be to start to take herbal antibiotics, kind of to police the environment, to keep things under control at all times. Okay. And for that, my favorite two are to use otoba bark and cat's claw. And that's based on some Petri dish experiments came out about 6 years ago that showed that those two in combination do a great job of killing the various forms of Lyme that live in you and also removing biofilms. All right. Now, usually if I'm going to use them for full-scale treatment, I'm going to work a person up to taking 30 drops of both of those herbs twice a day. When you're using it more as a preventive at the end of treatment, you can actually have a person take it as 15 drops twice a day. You don't necessarily need to be on the full amount. Okay. All right. So to give you some ideas of what you can look at regarding that, I'm going to just show you my article that I've written about this. All right. So this is back at my online resource, Treat Lyme. All right. And you can take a look at the article, the chapter called End of Treatment. And then take a look at this article called Finished and How to Prevent Relapse. Okay. All right. And then there's where I go through the various steps that I was just telling you about. It's all written down. Okay. All right. All right, Oscar, thanks for that question. Good luck to you. Hello, Bill. Let's see. Happy new Dr. Ross. I think you meant Happy New Year. But let's see. I'm attempting to treat SIBO and had a score of 220 on your yeast questionnaire. Started nystatin 1 month ago at 500,000 international units twice daily and changed to a low-carb diet. Got significant improvement, but still a little bloaty. Added fluconazole at 200 milligrams once daily and felt worse, nausea, metallic taste, diarrhea. Went to 100 milligrams 3 times a week and then feeling better again. Just wondering if I should try gradually increasing the dose frequency of the fluconazole again to try and get a better kill of the yeast, or carry on with nystatin or the lower dose of fluconazole for a longer time, or try your herbal suggestions. I'm also interested in your thoughts of getting a fecal transplant from a family member. I'm sure my microbiome is off the wall as I've been treating my Lyme-Bartonella mycoplasma symptoms with antibiotics for 2 years. I'm also taking Cytoquel, Lauracidin, Corebiotic, Florastor, BioK, plus many thanks for sharing your knowledge and insight. Okay. Bill, thanks for that question. I just want to reread one part of your question here just a minute. Okay. So that the symptoms that you had when you added the fluconazole in of nausea, metallic taste, diarrhea, probably is more of a side effect of the fluconazole than it is a Herxheimer reaction. Okay. That's what I was trying to see. If it had been a Herxheimer reaction, because you can get, not only can you get Herxheimer reactions from killing Lyme, you can get Herxheimer reactions from killing yeast as well too. If it had been a Herxheimer reaction, I would say cut back on the fluconazole and gradually increase it, okay? But what I'm concerned about here is I'm wondering if you're having more of a side effect issue, all right? And because of that, what you might want to do is approach your provider and see if they'd be willing to prescribe another azole anti-yeast medication. Okay, so fluconazole, it ends in those letters azole. That's called an azole. Okay, and other azoles are something called itraconazole. There's something called ketoconazole, voriconazole. These are all azoles. Fluconazole, which is diflucan, is the most common one, but there's other options that your providers could look at. Often if I had somebody that was having trouble with the fluconazole, what I might try next when I was in practice would be to try the itraconazole, which is a 100 milligram pill, 2 pills 1 time a day. Trouble is sometimes insurance blocks covering it because it can be more expensive. Another option you could look at instead of that fluconazole or even the itraconazole is to try something called Lamisil, which is also known as terbinafine. it is in its own family. It's actually approved for treating toenail fungus, but yeast is a fungus, and it can do a pretty good job of treating intestinal yeast overgrowth as well too. That's actually fairly cheap, and insurance doesn't get in the way of it. And that would be a 250 milligram pill 1 time a day. Those would be things I would do. Okay. So what Bill's trying to do here, everyone, is to try to treat yeast, and I recommend a fairly aggressive treatment, which is to use probiotics coupled with nystatin, coupled with an azole or a Lamisil, okay, terbinafine Lamisil, as I said here, okay? All right, now to your question about fecal transplants, it's a very interesting area. So fecal transplants, everyone, means that you actually take stool that has been processed and found not to have a lot of infectious agents in it, and you either take it as freeze-dried pills or you do it by enema, for instance. You put it up in your rear end and you hold it for a while, basically. And what that can do is that can help repopulate your intestines with healthy bacteria, basically, all right? And at this point in the United States, it's approved and allowed to be used by the FDA, doctors giving it in their offices. It's only approved and allowed for if you have problems with an infection called C. difficile bacteria. The FDA allows us to do fecal transplants if you have that problem, okay? However, it is still possible. There are a few doctors that kind of go outside what the FDA allows. It's kind of hard to find that will allow you to actually do it to rebalance the healthy bacteria in your intestines, even if you don't have the C. difficile. And I actually support it. I don't think there's harm that can come from that. If you're going to do it with a family member, you need to make sure they don't have any parasite infections that you're not aware of, okay? But you do need to realize that it is considered to be totally experimental, okay? All right. And actually, I'm wondering if someday we'll find out that maybe when people are done with their Lyme treatments, this is what we do with everyone. We just have them do fecal transplants as a means of replenishing and restoring the good bacteria in their intestines. It's not standard right now. Don't get me wrong. It's me wondering if it might be a good way to go down the road. Okay. All right. Thanks for the question, Bill. Good luck to you. All right. So Frank, I've got a question from Frank. It's a long one, so I'm going to wind up reading it instead of posting the whole thing here. All right. So see, my symptoms were constant, but now intermittent. Head pressure with pounding on heartbeats, heart pain, abdominal pain at 2 places only, painful itching, neuropathy, muscle twitching, tinnitus, hair loss, lesions in mouth, and feeling intoxicated. I might have more than one infection. During the acute phase, the pressure in the head was so high, I had blurred vision, pressure in ears, difficulty thinking, low anxiety except when going to the doctor, but who wouldn't when sick? Unable to work more than 2 hours a day and facing a doctor who tells you are fine. 1 to 256 IFA for Bartonella at Galaxy Diagnostics, a 1 to 160 IFA in Canada, then Western blot, IgG positive for Bartonella, and Vinsoni at IGeneX. My Canadian doctor brushes it off and says the titers must be in the thousands range to be active. What can I tell him? I read in the literature that positive Western blot is confirmed to positive IFA. Are the symptoms of Bartonella Vinsoni different than other species? I felt the infection move from one place to another. Let's see here. I'm just going to read this quietly here just for a minute. Okay. So, Frank, there's just a lot there that you put in your question, and this format probably works better for simple questions than to do complex ones. At one time, I would have suggested that you and I set up a consult where I can talk to you, get more insight. But being that I've located down in Texas now where I'm not licensed, I can't do these consults online. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to give you a good response here. So yes, to answer one of your questions, it's possible to have Bartonella. The Bartonella that you're describing there could have similar symptoms to any Bartonella. Whether you're able to convince a doctor to treat you is a different issue altogether. being in Canada, there are some naturopath physicians up in Canada that are treating, and I suggest you might want to meet with one of those physicians so that they can review your case and help give you some insights about what to do next, okay? There are a couple that I have worked with over in British Columbia. You might reach out to them and see. You didn't say quite where you are here, but Maria Borman in Victoria is one option. There's a physician named Eric Chan, who's a naturopathic doctor that treats down in Richmond, British Columbia. But you might want to reach out and just see if they might give you some insight. I think you need to sit down with a physician that's open-minded about Lyme disease that might be able to help you with some of this. Okay? All right. So I can't give you more specifics than that. It's just that there's a lot of complexity to what you listed there, and this kind of a format is not a good way for me to be able to address that. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Frank. Hello, Kay. Happy New Year, Dr. Marty. Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone here, too. Let's see, I've been treating Lyme since April. I have no idea when bitten and was feeling just about myself when I saw my LMD in December. She stopped my rifampin and doxy, which I had been on since September. Before that, I was on clarithromycin, plaquenil, grapefruit seed extract. She started me on microbinate, 2 pills twice a day. This is all I take in addition to immune and detox support. Is that enough? What exactly does it do? Do I need to keep taking probiotic and grapefruit seed extract and keep taking Cytoquil? Thank you for helping me get to this point. All right, hold on here just a minute. All right. So, Kay, let me just make a few observations. All right. So, when treating Lyme, when it's time to stop the antibiotics, that is the prescription antibiotics and even the herbal antibiotics, for instance, usually I decide when I was in practice, I would make a decision to stop based upon 2 different situations. One is you're completely well for at least 2 months. Okay, completely well, no symptoms. The reason, and I would still treat while somebody was feeling well for at least 2 months because I wanted to make sure that I decrease the chances of getting into a relapse. Okay, I would still treat with antibiotics. All right. The other situation that I would do would be to keep treating, and if somebody got to a point, they were at a pretty good point, but at a plateau for about 4 months, and no matter what changes I made in their treatment, nothing seemed to shift them forward, then I might say it's time to stop, because there's some times when you get into Lyme, you're just going to have ongoing permanent injury, okay? So I can't tell how long you were feeling really well here for, but if you weren't feeling really well for at least 2 months, I would be concerned that maybe your provider stopped treatment a little bit too soon with the antibiotics, okay? Now, in terms of what could be done regarding that, for the Lyme, the 2 antibiotic herbs that I like using are a combination of otobobark and cat's claw, okay? And I have an article about that at Treat Lyme. You can take a look at that. You could use that as a substitute for the prescription antibiotics that your LMD was using for the Lyme term, okay? The microbinate is a product by Research Nutritionals that is probably better suited at targeting viral infections than it is a product that I would use to treat bacteria infections seen in Lyme disease. So I'm not sure what your provider's rationale was for that. I can't tell from the degree of question that you're having here, what you put into this question. But I don't think that that's targeting. And from just what you described here, I might be more inclined to keep treating your Lyme a little bit longer. I wonder if they stopped a little bit too soon, just based on what you put here, okay? Regardless, I do think that when somebody is done off of antibiotics, I would leave them on probiotics for anywhere from 6 months to a year. I would still leave them on something to prevent yeast, and that would, in addition to probiotics, and that could either be the nystatin, it could be some of the herbal products I recommend, combination products. There's one called Phytostan that has in it powder coke, caprylic acid, rosemary oil, thyme oil. I would do that 2 pills twice a day for at least 4 months. If you're not all the way back to normal yet, I would still do something to lower cytokines, which could be the Cytoquil that you mentioned. It has a number of herbs in it that help lower cytokines too. Or you could do curcumin, liposomal curcumin, which is the Mariva 500 that I recommend 1 pill twice a day. So those are some thoughts that I would have for you. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. And thank you for that question. And actually, I'm going to look at something here because I just want to remind myself of what actually is in the microbonate. Bear with me here for a minute. Okay, so I'm literally going to look at the label here. Yeah, so it's got oregano in it, monolaurin, olive leaf, alicinin, which is garlic. It does have a curcumin in it, which is going to help lower cytokines. That's curcumin. Okay, but generally, I would look at this microbonate as a better antiviral product. The oregano in there and the alicinin, in addition to treating viruses, might lower yeast, but it would not be my experience that this would be the best way to control yeast. Okay. Nor do I think that this would be enough to control Lyme either. Some of my colleagues might think that the oregano can help with Lyme by itself and that the alicinin can, but I just don't think there's enough in this product that it's actually going to help control Lyme if you're still trying to get Lyme all the way under control. I think the better way to do that would be the Otoba bark and the cat's claw that I mentioned. Okay. All right. Thanks for the question. And let me go back here. All right. Let's see here. Hello, Jackie. It looks like there's something missing to your question here, unfortunately. Let me see if the rest of it makes any. It's still a question. Let's see. Any vegan alternatives do the same? My mom in New Jersey tests positive with hygienic, assumed late stage. She has UTI symptoms, rushing to urinate. So I think I'm missing part of your question. I'm not going to be able to answer that for you. All right. Hello, Natasha. Let's see. Hey, Doc Marty. Thank you for all that you do for so many of us. You're welcome, Natasha. Let's see. Our mold doctor gave us a protocol for mast cell because every time my wife eats, the pain in her brain increases. Instructions were not so clear. Take quercetin 1 pill a half hour before each meal, and at bedtime, working up to 4 pills a day, going up 1 pill every 5 to 7 days. All clear and Pyramine have similar instruction, but does he mean it will take 20 days to get to the close dose of quercetin before adding all clear, then another 20 days before we add pyramine, so a total of 60 days to work up to full dose of each to see how body reacts? Or can these be combined, or can the wait and see period be shorter than 5 days? Again, thank you. So I'm not going to be able to answer this. The reason is I'm not familiar with the all clear and the pyramine products off the top of my head. I don't know. In terms of the quercetin, I usually would try to work a person up to 500 milligrams twice a day. Usually a pill is 250 milligrams. But I'm just not going to be able to make comment because I'm not sure what these other products are, unfortunately. Okay. Sorry about that, Natasha. Hello, Greg. I see. Happy New Year, Dr. Ross. Can you please elaborate on the current knowledge of sexual transmissibility, not just of Lyme, but also of the typical co-infections? Also, can you transmit Lyme co-infections to another individual via saliva? Okay. So I am not of the opinion that you can transmit via saliva or holding hands or using toothbrushes, sharing food, etc. I don't think that's how we transmit Lyme, and I haven't seen information that supports it can be transmitted that way either. Okay, so holding hands is fine, kissing is fine, etc. All right. Now, in terms of infections that might be transmittable sexually, there is a chance Lyme could be. I will tell you there is no scientific proof of that fact, though. Okay, so let me tell you what we know. So what we do know is that there have been studies done, a couple of studies done by two different research groups that ask the question, can you find Lyme in the male ejaculate, and can you find it in the vaginal fluid of people that have Lyme? Okay, so female vaginal fluid. If a woman has Lyme, can you find it in her vaginal fluid? And if a man has Lyme, can you find it in his male ejaculate, right? In one of those studies that was done looking at the fluids, one study showed that you can find it in the male ejaculate 100% of the time and the female vaginal fluid 50% of the time. All right. Second study was done and had actual reverse results, which showed that it was 100% of the vaginal fluid and 50% of the time it was in the male ejaculate. Okay. So we know it's in the fluids. We know that another spirochete, syphilis, is sexually transmitted. So because of that, people think it could be sexually transmitted. Okay. Now, if you start reading about this, you're going to run into a study that was done by Stricker that got published maybe about 2 or 3 years ago now. Stricker was even quoted as saying something to the effect that we have more to fear in our bedrooms than we do in our backyards. I think he blew his study way out of proportion. In fact, his study was a horrible study. And so let me talk about his study because you're going to run into it. In the study, they looked at 13 people. Okay, now I will tell you, in medicine, you cannot make any conclusions on studies that only involve 13 people. Okay, they're not reproducible, basically. All right. So that's one problem with the study. There just weren't enough done. All right. But what they did in the study is they were able to look at men and women that were in it, and they looked to see is Lyme in the fluids? Is it in the vaginal fluid? Is it in the male ejaculate? And they were actually able to tell what type of Lyme was in there, what strain of Lyme was in there. In the study of 13 people, there were 6 of those people that were in couples. Okay, so there were male-female couples that made up 6 of those people. And in those male-female couples, they were found to have identical strains of Lyme in the vaginal fluid and in the male ejaculate, and therefore Stricker and his group concluded it can be sexually transmitted. We have proof of it, okay? All right, so here's a problem. Beyond just 13 people studies, you can't make any general conclusions. The bigger problem is they did not control for the last time that the male ejaculated in the female. So when they're measuring something in the woman's vagina, is it because her male partner just had ejaculated it in, or a week ago ejaculated it in, it's still living there, and her system is able to keep it under control and not have it invade her body? In other words, she doesn't get infected with it. It just is living within the fluid, okay? So we don't know if what's being measured in the female is something that's coming from her blood moving into the vagina and therefore suggesting that she might have gotten it from her partner and be sexually transmitted. So we just cannot elaborate enough here. We don't know when you measure something in the female in that study, because they didn't stop the male from ejaculating. We don't know if they're measuring really what was a deposit from the male that might or might not infect the woman. Just living in the vagina doesn't mean it infects the body, okay? So we really don't know. What I did see when I was in practice, about 10 to 15% of sexual partners of the patients I would treat had symptoms suggestive of Lyme. We would do testing and find that they had positive testing. So I think that there could be maybe up to 10 to 15% chance it can be transmitted. All right. So that's what we know. Okay. All right. Now, in terms of Bartonella, there is no proof it can be sexually transmitted, but Bartonella is similar to some other bacteria that are sexually transmitted. And anecdotally, some of us have seen situations where we think it can be transmitted. So I think there's a small chance that Bartonella might be transmittable, but I will tell you again, we have no scientific proof of that, okay? Babesia, I do not think is sexually transmitted. I don't think there's enough scientific evidence even to suggest that. Anaplasma and Ehrlichia, which are the other co-infections, I honestly don't know. I haven't seen any information about that, okay? All right. Let's see. I think I answered your questions there. Okay. All right, Greg. Good luck to you. All right. Let's see here. Hello, Karen. Let's see. Howdy from Calgary. My Armin Ellispot titers have gone from 8 to 5 to 2 after 2 years of treatments. Would you still treat for Lyme? I had tick bite in 2012 and head and neck injury in 2013. Neurosymptoms started a few months after my fall. The Babesia symptoms are gone, but I still have neurovestibular symptoms. Karen, I might not. I would need to ask you a lot more questions to figure out if clinically, if I thought that the neurologic vestibular symptoms you're having is because of the head neck injury, or whether there still could be a chance it could be clinically due to Lyme. I know that a number of my colleagues are using ELISpot tests to determine if you might be done with treatment. I think that is not a reliable way of going. So let's talk about what an ELISpot test does. Okay, so an ELISpot test, what happens in an ELISpot is we remove a type of white blood cell from your blood called T cells. Okay, and then we take those T cells and we, in a test tube, add in proteins from Lyme, and we see, do those T cells react to those Lyme proteins by making cytokines? And if they do, then we assume that means that your T cells have been fighting Lyme sometime within the last 2 months, and therefore the Lyme germ must still be in you. Okay? All right. Now, the reason we say 2 months is that a T cell, once it is made, lasts in your body for 2 months. All right. Okay. Now, the problem is Lyme can still be in you, and it can hide in ways that the immune system can't see it. So even if you get a negative T cell activation test, meaning the ELISpot test is negative or is decreasing in value, it just may mean that Lyme is still in you, but has gone and is hiding in a way that the T cells can't see it. It's possible, okay? So I don't think that it's a reliable way of saying if Lyme is out of you or under control all the way. I made my decisions clinically about whether to keep treating for active Lyme based on what the symptoms told me, okay? And I still would stand by that. For me to give you the best advice, I would need to ask a lot of questions, which this format doesn't allow me to do, okay? All right. Anyhow, I hope that it gives you some insight there. Good luck to you. Hello, Jackie. Let's see. Very happy for your location. Oh, well, we already did that. Ah, I see. Hold on here a minute, everyone. So I see. So Jackie, you were actually asking, are there any vegan alternatives for probiotics? And the answer is, I'm not aware of one off the top of my head. Although I tell you what, Jackie, could you do me a favor? So my email address is Marty Ross MD, so MartyRossMD at treatlyme.com. That's TreaTlyme.com. Can you write me this question again? I need to look into the vegan question that you're asking about here a little bit more regarding what ingredients go into the Proflora and also the core biotic. I need to look and see, are they vegan or not? Anyhow, but I'll have to get back to you on that later. Okay, I don't know that off the top of my head here. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, Jackie. Thank you. I understand there was a second part to your question now. Okay. Hello, Susan. Hi, Dr. Ross. Can you please tell me why it is so difficult to exercise? I try to walk in the neighborhood, but come back feeling worse instead of better. Also, let me see if I can find a second part here. I think this is a second part. Also, do Canadians have any difficulty in getting your supplements with the border issues? Okay, so regarding getting supplements across the border from my store, 99% of the time there are no difficulties at all. 99.9% of the time, okay? It can take, with regular first-class shipping, it can take on average about a week to get through the border. There are some times that the border that they will, on the Canadian side, they will stop to inspect those packages, and sometimes it can take up to 2 weeks to get through the border on average. Okay, all right, but generally within about a week. So generally, things get through fine. There are times they will inspect the packages, though. Okay, all right. All right, back to the first part of your question here. All right, so there is a phenomenon that happens in Lyme and happens in chronic fatigue syndrome, and also happens in fibromyalgia. It's known as something called neuromediated fatigue, which is you get worse by doing activity. All right, and it is a phenomenon that is very particular to those illnesses. I don't have a solidly good explanation as to why it happens, other than it's probably just part of the disease process in general. The big thing that I tell people to do is find the amount you can tolerate. Okay, and if that means you can only walk 2 blocks and that's all you can tolerate, then that's all you can do at this point. Hopefully over time, as your illness gets under control, you'll be able to expand the amount of exercise that you do. Okay, all right, so I wish I had a better answer for you than that. All right, good luck to you, Susan. Hello, Colleen. Let's hi, Dr. Ross. Somebody gifted me a bottle of moringa. Is this good for someone with Lyme, Babesia, or Bartonella? I'm taking Cemento, Banderol, Hosnia, Cryptolepis, Mariva, Carnitil, magnesium, NAC, krill oil, and probiotics. Will this interact poorly with any of those? Is there benefit to moringa? I don't think you'll have any difficulty mixing it with the things that you're taking. I myself have never seen great benefit from it. Okay, that doesn't mean there aren't some people that get benefit from it, but in my practice, I never saw great benefit from it. Okay, all right. Good luck to you. Hello, SJOC. Questions about GSE paramyocin 251. Can I take it the same time as Doxy, or should I wait 30 minutes or so before or after Doxy? 2, does it absolutely have to be taken with meals? And 3, why does the bottle say to use for up to 3 months? 4, is 500 milligrams per day total too small for a 120-pound female? I'm hoping to start using it for at least 2 months daily. 5, I read that grapefruit seed extract treats spirochete and cyst forms of Borrelia. Is this true for Borrelia burgdorferi too? Can I use it with Doxy? Okay, so let me try to go through. So everyone, paramycrocidin is the allergy research product for grapefruit seed extract, okay? And grapefruit seed extract has some Petri dish experiments that show that it can kill the cyst form of Lyme. I've never used it as something that would treat the spirochete form. I think the laboratory evidence is more that it would treat cyst Lyme, and that's how I tended to use it in my practice. In my experience, I think taking it with food and with doxycycline at the same time is fine. I think it works well. So to answer 2 of your questions in there, I think the dose that is effective for an average 150 to 175 pound person, and you're 120 pounds, I understand, is about 250 milligrams twice a day. I think at 120 pounds, I don't think 250 milligrams twice a day is excessive. I think that would work well for you. Yeah, I think I just answered your questions. Yes, you could take it with meals. Yes, you could take it directly at the same time as the Doxy. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, SJ. Thanks for that question. Let's see here. Hello, Justin. See, hello, Dr. Ross. Many of us affected by Lyme develop other hormonal issues. My thyroid panel results are thyroid peroxidase normal, TSH 7, free T4.9, free T3 2.6. So I am hypothyroid, I believe. My question is, does treating the thyroid help you heal faster, or might it mask symptoms? Will my thyroid correct itself as I recover from Lyme, or should I help it along? Also, a new product called Embrace or Enlight with Delta folate was recommended to me by a doctor to help with overall mood and feeling better. Are you familiar with it? I bring it up because it may be something that can help myself and others suffering from Lyme. It was highly recommended, but I wanted to see what your thought first, since you are so knowledgeable. Thank you so much, and I wish everyone out there good luck, Justin. So actually, I'm not familiar with that article of that product. I'd have to take a look into it a little bit and see what the actual ingredients are, Justin. So I can't make a comment off the top of my head. Your thyroid blood testing. So the TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. It's a chemical that's made by the brain that tells your thyroid to make its stuff. Okay, and what it's supposed to be making is free as T4 and T3. Your actual T4 level is 0.9 is in the normal range, and the T3 is 2.6 is in the normal range. But that T4 in particular is on the lower side of normal. All right. Your TSH is elevated. In fact, I consider elevation to be anything that's about 2.5 or higher. All right. So the brain, when it wants the thyroid to make more T4 and T3, tells it to do so by starting to yell at it. And that means it makes high amounts of TSH, okay? There are some studies that suggest, even though the average endocrinologist out there still says that normal is at about 5 or lower, there is some studies that show that if you remove people that have subclinical low thyroid, the kind that cannot be measured. If you get them out, if you remove them, you do ultrasounds, you see their thyroid is swollen, and you remove those peoples from studies that were used to determine what an average TSH should be, that instead of TSH sitting at 5, up to 2.5 actually is normal. Okay, so if you remove people with illness, that really a normal thyroid should be, functioning thyroid should only have a TSH of 2.5 or lower, okay? If it's above 2.5, that means your brain is screaming at your thyroid to make more because the brain is interpreting that you have low thyroid. So I would interpret this as being that you have low thyroid, okay? All right, now, do I think you should be treated? Yeah. And the reason you want to be treated is thyroid helps all of your metabolic processes work better, meaning your immune cells work better, meaning your all of your cells work better, okay? It is true that once your Lyme gets under control, that your thyroid may turn back on, and therefore you may not have to be taking thyroid medication over time. Taking thyroid medication does not decrease the chances of that happening, okay? So in my practice, if you were in my practice, I probably would have treated you for thyroid based on what these numbers tell me, all right? Okay, good luck to you. Hello, Hannah. Hi there, and I hope you are well. Thank you. I hope to know more about protocol with antibiotics and treatment. I am seeing a PA who treats me for babesiosis and Lyme using about 3 antibiotics per 3 to 4 months. She then changes them to try to get the spirochete and babesia. I'm concerned about long-term antibiotic effects. What's your take? How long do you prescribe antibiotics for straight consecutive months? So, Hannah, so when you treat Lyme, the Lyme germ, okay, not Babesia, not Bartonella, but the Lyme germ. An average length of treatment when you have chronic Lyme can be 2 years, all right? And in that, I think it's okay to use the antibiotics pretty much during that whole time. So I'm not somebody that gets concerned about resistance or whatever your provider is doing here, but I would tend to use them on an ongoing basis. In my own protocols, when I was treating, I would rotate antibiotics about every 6 months, though, to prevent resistance from developing. I don't know that every 3 to 4 months is wrong. There's no studies that tell us what's the ideal cycle to do some rotations. But I just want to let you know that for Lyme germ, on average, it's about 2 years of using antibiotics fairly regular during that time period. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Randall. Let's see, Dr. Ross, what is your treatment protocol for Bartonella? So I think I showed that earlier, but Randall, there's some choices you have. Okay, so I would take a look at my article called Kills Bartonella, a Brief Antibiotic Guide. It reviews both herbal and prescription options. Generally, you're going to want to use agents that get inside of the cells to treat Bartonella. So that means using 2 intracellular antibiotics. Those will work 80 to 85% of the time. Your other option would be to do 2 herbal antibiotic regimen. Usually I would mix together Hutania and Sida acuta. Those work about 70-75% of the time. I do outline those in my Bartonella article called Kills Bartonella that you can read at treatlyme.net. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. I showed everyone that article earlier, which is why I'm not going to do a screen share to show it right now. Okay. Hello, Greg. Let's see. Dr. Ross, thanks for taking my question again. Would you treat the following patient scenario? 23-year-old healthy male with no symptoms, recently diagnosed by IGeneX with a positive immunobat bands 23, 31, 39, 41, and all negative on the IgG side. Also positive with ehrlichiosis and babesiosis, both IgM. It's a good question. So here's the problem with this whole thing. So it is very possible to have false positive tests. Okay. And the predictive value, meaning the chance that the test that you that comes back positive is correct, goes up with the number of symptoms that you have of the illness. All right. So if you have a lot of symptoms of Lyme and you have positive testing, there's a good chance that test is correct. Right. Same with babesia, same with ehrlichiosis. In my own practice, and then, okay, so that's one thing, okay? So there's a good chance without symptoms that you have false positive testing, even for all these germs. There's a chance, all right? All right. The other thing is when it comes to Lyme and these infections is it's very possible the immune system can get rid of these germs and that it has the ability to deal with it on its own and that we don't need to get in its way, okay? The other question I have the reason I would shy away from treating if somebody was not having symptoms is when it comes to Lyme, generally our end goal is to knock the germ load down enough that you're not having problems. And if you're already there not having problems, because also I don't think you ever eradicate the germ. So if you're not having problems to begin with, what's the point in using the antibiotics? And I believe there's a risk when we use antibiotics or even herbal antibiotics and you don't have symptoms that the germ could learn ways to become stronger and more virulent to go around that. And then you start having problems from your germ. So my take on a situation like this, generally in my practice, now granted, I'm not getting to ask you all kinds of questions to help make sure that you really are not having symptoms here, okay? But if you truly, truly are symptom-free, I would not treat. I would be concerned of false positive testing here. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Greg. Thanks for the question. Hello, Claire. Hold on here, everyone. I got to get a sip of water. Let's see. What role for teasel root in Lyme treatment? It's interesting. You know, I didn't. So I have used teasel in my practice, and I can tell you how I would use it when I was treating. But the person that writes about teasel probably the most would be Buhner, as in Buhner Herbs. He doesn't believe it's the strongest way of treating. I have used it before, and I would use it if a person could not tolerate either Cemento or Banderol. I might use it in my combinations that were supposed to be Banderol or Cat's Claw. I might use it as an alternative to either the Cat's Claw or the Banderol if a person could not tolerate one of those. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm confusing words. Okay, so Nutramedics has a product called Cemento, which is Cat's Claw. They have another product, which is Otoba Bark, which is called Banderol, all right? There are other manufacturers that make Otoba bark and make cat's claw. And so what I'm really referring to here is cat's claw and Otoba bark. I don't care who the manufacturer is. I find those work well about 85 to 90% of the time, okay, to help get Lyme under control. If a person is having a reaction to one of those, then I might work with Teasel as an alternative, okay? And the Teasel I would I would work up to 30 drops twice a day. Now, I know I haven't written about that. You haven't seen me write about that, but that's how I'd wind up doing it. It started at 5 drops twice a day, and every other day I would add by 1 drop per dose until you reach 30 drops twice a day. And I find Teasel can work quite well. I'm carrying at Marty Ross MD Supplements. I'm using a Teasel product from Wildcraft Herbs, and you can find that at my supplement store as well too. Okay, all right. Good luck to you. Hello, Anna. Let's see, why the Lyme controversy and doctors not believing in chronic Lyme? Wow, that's a loaded question. Anna, what I would do, and this is going to, because it's a long question, there is not a simple answer to that, unfortunately. I would take a look. If you want to know what, it's a political problem, there's a lot of history behind it. There's 2 places I would look to kind of get some background on it. Number one, you could look at the documentary called Under Our Skin. Just Google it. You'll find it might even be on Netflix still. All right. So Under Our Skin, number one, does a good job of reviewing the Lyme controversies. But there's also a book about the issue. It's called A Cure Unknown. So Cure and then Unknown, Cure Unknown by Pamela Weintraub, Weintraub, Pamela Weintraub. It's about, I think it may be 7 or 8 years old now. But Pamela was a head editor, I believe, of either Science magazine or Discover magazine at one time. So she was executive or one of the editors there, but has a good way of looking at science. Basically, she's a writer that understands science, and she happened to have Lyme herself. But she wanted to go back and just look and see what is this all about. And I think she does a good job of describing how we got to this point where we have warring doctors. One group saying it's real, so one group saying it's not. If you're looking for the politics and how we got to this point, take a look at Pamela Weintraub's book, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Anna. Hello. Let's see here. Anastasia. Hello, Anastasia. I hope I got that right, but if not, I apologize for that. Hi, Dr. Ross. I was recently diagnosed with Lyme and was started on herbs, but not see much improvement after 3 months, and also had a severe allergic reaction. After having been diagnosed with Hashimoto's based on fatigue and Raynaud's, and in the last month have been experiencing tinnitus. Now my doctor wants to put me on antibiotics. I know you talk about do no harm, that is sometimes better not to treat. So I was wondering, at what point do you recommend treatment, and what type of symptoms or how severe they have to be? Thank you so much in advance. It's a good question. I mean, there's not a set determination I have. It's based on a dialogue with my patients. When I was seeing patients, I would say, you're 85%. The antibiotics have a 85 to 90% chance they could help you, but there's some side effect issues we might have. And I would just try to engage in a dialogue with them to see what matters to them. I cannot tell you actual percentage. I think it's very much based on a conversation and your own individual values, what matters to you. Okay. So that's something I would probably try to engage your doctor about, because they know your situation. They can help you answer those questions. All right. I don't have a set formula on that one. All right. Thanks for the question, though. Patrick, I appreciate your comment. Patrick says, "You the man." So I appreciate that. I'm not going to post it, though. Let's see here. Hello, B. Let's see. I have your book. Thank you so much. You're welcome. I also have Neil Nathan's book, Toxic: Heal Your Body from Mold Toxicity, Lyme Disease, Multiple Chemical Sensitivities, and Chronic Environmental Illness. Are you familiar with his work? Also, apparently, doctors are seeing Morgellons emerge when patients have Lyme and then are exposed to toxins, in particular mold. What do you say? All right. So Neil Nathan is a good doctor. And he treats Lyme disease, or has treated Lyme disease before, and has kind of carved out more of a niche for himself in the world of people that have a lot of issues with toxin, especially mold toxicity. I am very familiar with a lot of his ideas. I haven't read this book yet. It's on the stack. There's a couple things I want to get through, but I would trust what he says. I have to read the specifics of his book. But in general, I think Neil's a good doctor. I think he is in the same genre as where I would come out of on some of these issues as well, too. And then in terms of, I can't say whether I would see, now I did in my practice, had a lot of people with various toxicity issues as well as Lyme. I can't see this. It was not my observation that if somebody had Morgellons, they had any more chances of having problems with toxicity and toxins and mold toxin illness and whatever kind of toxin illness they might have than somebody that didn't have Morgellons. That has not been my observation. Okay. Does toxicity and having problems with toxicity make it more difficult to deal with infections in general? Yeah, it can. It can suppress the immune system and interfere with how your mitochondria functions, et cetera. But I didn't see that kind of relationship that you write about here. Okay. All right. So I would take a look at Neil's book. It's actually on my to-read list. I wanted to see if I can get some ideas from him as well, too. But generally, over time, I've always have enjoyed learning from Neil, and I've had numbers of conversations with him before, too. So I would definitely support taking a look at that book. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, and thank you for that question, B. Hello, Pamela C. Happy, prosperous New Year. Thank you. Thank you for all you do for the Limeys out here. Have you heard about a Scandinavian Lyme treatment called CHIM? It's supposedly a variation on energy medicine. No, I have not. I'll have to take a look at that. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. All right. Hello, Val. Hi, Dr. Ross. Husband's high lymphocyte numbers are suggestive of chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Are running flow cytometry tests and referring to oncologist. Have read that Borrelia infection should be ruled out before diagnosis of chronic lymphocytic leukemia. What are your thoughts on CLL and chronic Lyme patients? Thanks so much for your insight. I have never seen a relationship between the two, nor did I. That doesn't mean there's not one. I'm saying I haven't seen a relationship between the two. And in my practice, treating thousands of people with this, I haven't run into somebody that had both Lyme and CLL at the same time. So those are just my comments on that. Okay. All right. Thanks for the question, Val. And good luck to your husband. Hello, Sherry. Let's see. I've been treating for Lyme and Bartonella and Babesia with a combination of antibiotics and herbs for about 2 months. My biggest physical problem is feeling off balance when I walk, and it is not improving. Can you offer any insight on this symptom and recovery for walking difficulties? So that sounds like a form of what we call vertigo, which means an imbalance that comes from one of two things: either injury or inflammation of the balance apparatus of your inner ear, or it can sometimes come from a dysfunction of a part of the brain in the back of the head called the cerebellum. The one thing that you might want to do is to make sure that I would suggest, if they have not done so already, having an evaluation with an ear, nose, and throat doctor so they can see if this is an inner ear problem or not. If it is an inner ear problem that is due to Lyme, over time, treating it should help, okay? but it may take time. There's not a specific treatment that I would suggest that's going to help you with the imbalance like that, but I would make sure you're not talking a non-Lyme related problem. That's why I'd say have an ear, nose, and throat doctor take a look at you as well too, to help do an evaluation of that. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Sherry. I appreciate that question. Actually, I had some problems with vertigo that developed while I was riding a motorcycle a couple of years ago that took me to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and I was able to help figure out what to do about that. So I understand the problem quite a bit, actually. And I'm back riding my motorcycle again, so that's good. All right. Thanks, Sherry. Hello, Paige. How long do you feel treatment for Babesia is needed? I have been ill for 6 years and also have Lyme. Why is malaria treatment short by traditional medicine, but Babs is ongoing for months? Thanks, Dr. Ross. So generally to eradicate Babesia is going to be about 4 to 5 months. That's just the timeline that I see, and I know that's what a number of my colleagues see. So malaria and Babesia are different germs, okay? And Babesia and Lyme, as opposed to having Babesia alone, is a different thing too. I think Lyme suppresses the immune system and makes it harder for the immune system to help eradicate Babesia. I think that's what's going on. That's my opinion on that, though, okay? We think, the reason most of us think that we need to treat for 4 to 5 months is that Babesia lives in your red blood cells. It's kind of difficult to get rid of, and it can live, but we need to make sure, and the red blood cell, once it's made in your bone marrow, gets into the blood and can last in your blood for 3 to 4 months. Okay, so the life cycle of red blood cells is 3 to 4 months. We do best if we're treating with the antimicrobials so they bathe the new blood cells as they're being made before they can get infected from the existing red blood cells. We do best if we can treat through one life cycle of the blood cells. We just see that people do best that way. Okay. All right. And then in terms of how long would I treat, I'd say 4 to 5 months. I don't think it matters how long you've been ill for. In general, I found in my practice, 4 to 5 months is what's needed to get rid of Babesia. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. All right, everyone. It's good to be back here with everyone again tonight. I will be back again next week, the week after that, and the week after that, I believe, if things go as planned. Tomorrow morning, you will get an email from me with information about how to see the recorded version of the webinar. You can find it a number of places if you don't get my email. Number one, I always post it on the webinars page at treatlyme.net. I post it on the home page of treatlyme.net. You can scroll all the way down to the bottom. You can also find it at treatlyme.com, which is Marty Ross MD supplements on the homepage down at the bottom. And I will also post it on Facebook as well too tomorrow morning. Okay. So anyhow, I hope you all join me again next week. I've got some homework to do. You guys brought up some things I need to look into a little bit here. Okay. All right. Good night, everyone. And thanks for being with me tonight. And good luck with your Lyme disease journey. Okay. Bye-bye.